Hello everybody and welcome to another gear talk, and this time the full review of the Pentax K3 Monochrome. Before we begin, as usual, if you want to support the channel, please put a like, subscribe, share with your friends, and if you want to go a step further, check out the link in the description and you can find my website and the books I wrote: Inject Fine Art Printing, Photography Depth Manual, and Lasting Photographs, a novel with a photographic plot, very good reviews. This sale, let's talk about the K3 Monochrome. Short version, I'm in love with this camera. I had this camera from Fowa, the Italian importer of Pentax. Thank you for lending me this camera, and it will be a very sad day when I have to give it back in a few days. Absolutely, I love this camera. The quality of the images is fantastic. Pentax did a fantastic job. But before we begin, here a little slideshow of images that I made with this camera, and then we will talk again about it. As you have seen in the slideshow, the quality of the images is fantastic. Dynamic range, tonalities, and everything is absolutely fantastic. But I want to start from the beginning, and at the beginning I have two things that a little bit disappointed me about this camera. And the fact is that I got the camera in the original box with everything that is in the box, and when I opened the box I noticed two things that I don't like, and are very common right now with all the manufacturers and all the producers of camera. And one of them is the manual. The manual is not a real manual. It's just a very short version in different languages with the basic instruction to turn on the camera and put the charger. But it's not a manual, and I love to have a physical manual in my bag. Digital cameras are complex cameras, a lot of different functions that you need to know how to use and so on. A lot of time I'm around, I think I want to use this different function, but I didn't use for a while, I don't remember exactly how to reach the settings in the menu, and the manual is essential. The fact that I have to go on the website, download it, print it, cut it, put it together, put in my bags and so on is something that for me is annoying. And for this price range of this camera or any camera that is over $1,000, I really expect and I would love to have a physical manual. Sadly, it's something that is not common at all. The second thing that really was again another little thing is that with the camera you receive a power adapter to put an USB cable and put the USB-C on the other side and charge the camera, charge the battery. I love to have an option to charge the battery in a separate way. I love to have a charger. A charger is something that is really a few bucks and I would love to see it. By the way, to charge your camera using the USB-C, there's also another little problem. That it's not just that it's kind of uncomfortable, but it's also that you can wear out the USB-C plug. So these are two details that I didn't like. And now I can go on with what I loved about this camera, and it's everything, and I want to get one for myself. The first thing that is impressive with this camera is how beautiful are the files also at high ISO. I did a studio comparison that you can check here in this video, where I compared the monochrome to the color version of the K3 Mark III, and I compare the noise in studio at different ISO settings. You can go up to 51,000 ISO and so on and still have a fantastic file. 51,000 you have a little bit of grain, that is a little bit of noise that seems the grain of a 100 ISO film, and so it's absolutely fantastic. The beautiful things of that is not just that you can do low light photography, but it's also that it means there's a great dynamic range in the camera and you can recover the shadows very well. By the way, before I go on, I will not give you all the specification about the camera. You can find them online, 25 megapixel, 14 bits and so on. But I want to talk to you about my experience and my personal test. The dynamic range of this camera is absolutely fantastic. I did some tests in my studio. I used some a week of heavy rain that we had here around to do things in the studio, and you can really go down with underexposure without worrying. If you think about the zone system, probably you have the highlights and that are really it's not much extended in the highlights. It's 3-stop and you probably cut out, you have white without any detail. But you can go down in the shadow and you can have a zone 2 that probably has minus 10 stops or something like that. So it's absolutely fantastic. And you can see here the files that I tested, and at minus 5 stop you can recover without any problem, and almost you don't notice any noise coming up. you can go down 7 stops and 10 stops. I did these things, and even in 10 stops of underexposure, you can see that yes, you have noise in the dark areas, but on the middle gray, so exactly 10 stops below the medium gray, you can still have details. Dynamic range is absolutely fantastic. Something that if I have to compare with film, I had this kind of dynamic range with medium format or large format and a little bit of overexposure, underdevelopment, and so on. So it's really a fantastic camera that goes really deep in the shadows. And something that in studio is one thing, and I will probably do a video just about that, but in studio was one thing. In real life, it's another thing, and it is absolutely fantastic. I was taking photography in the Vico Forte in Mondovì, is near my home here in Italy. Beautiful church, and I saw this window with the sunlight straight on the back, so it was very, very bright, and the inside of the church was very, very dark. So absolutely a very contrasty sheen. And I say to myself, okay, now I can put the camera to the limits, and I was sure to find the limits of this camera. So I took the pictures. By the way, I used the exposure mode that is keeping the highlights, and that's something that is absolutely fantastic to have. It's something that you have on the K3 Monochrome and on the K3 color version, and is a setting of the exposure meter where the highlights are preserved. So you always have your highlights inside the histogram, and then you will work to recover the shadows. With this camera, it's fantastic. I used the setting, I took the picture, and when I recovered the shadows, I was absolutely impressed. You can see details in areas that were totally underexposed of the image. So you can recover them, no noise, and you can keep not just the lack of noise, but the beautiful tonal separation. Something that this camera have that is impressive is the quality of the tonalities, the midtones. The midtones are separate and still are kind of with soft transition. So it's beautiful. The quantity of midtones that you get is beautiful. And all these with a sharpness that is impressive. Sharpness that is natural sharpness, is not an artificial sharpness inserted in the conversion. If you want to check the difference between the color version and the monochrome version, you can check here. I did a video and comparing the two cameras, and you can see that in the color version there is always some kind of sharpness added that is kind of an artifact. It shows the pixel as a little bit more square. In this case, the pixels are I don't know, are not cut with an axe. The transitions are very sweet and soft. So I really loved that. It's a camera that really gave me again that feeling I have with film photography. So it's absolutely a fantastic sensor. Obviously, with the monochrome sensor, you have some limits in post-production. You cannot think, now I insert something that simulates a yellow filter, red filter, so I can increase the contrast in the sky, and so on. You have to think about that when you take the picture. You have to put the filters physically on the lens. By the way, I will do a little video just about this. I don't want to get too long in this review, so there will be a video about the use of filters on a monochrome camera. But something that I like to have the post-processing limits. Right now I look around and I think that most of images are too much post-processed. We got this habit to post-process too much, to trust too much, to give too much to the post-processing process. We stop to think about the image before and we post-process too much. So to have limits, it's really something that brings our mind back to what I consider real photography. And is that we connect our mind, we look at the things, we think what we have a vision, and we convert the vision in something, in an image that is coming from our mind. The camera becomes just an instrument that is not influencing what we are doing, and that's, for me, is absolutely a plus. And the plus is the fact that when you go around with a camera like this that is only black and white, your mind is set to black and white. So you really look only for the subjects that are great with black and white. You look for the quality of light, you look for the contrast, you look for the textures, patterns, and so on. This is a camera that if you enjoy black and white, obviously, but will make you better as photographer. So I absolutely think that Pentax did an absolutely fantastic job. To have a camera like this at a price range that is absolutely affordable, is not a cheap camera, but is not an expensive camera. Is a mid-range, is $2,000 something, 2,200. So great camera, great value, and really Pentax did a fantastic job. By the way, the fantastic thing of this camera is it's very easy to use. It's very easy to use in the menus, it's very easy to use in the various settings, but what makes it very easy to use is that the exposure meter is absolutely fantastic. The option to preserve the highlights will give you the ability to just put the camera in automatic. You know that there's not noise until upper ISO, so I have this camera set in automatic ISO, aperture priority with ISO limit at 6400, and I just took pictures. So very, very easy. There's another thing that impressed me about this camera is that when I took the test for the dynamic range in my studio, I did what I always do, and is take a measurement of the light, not just with the camera, but also with a spot meter and an incident meter. So I took my flash meter, Minolta flash meter 5, and I read the light. I put middle gray in the sheen, measured with the spot meter F, and measured then with the spot reading from this camera. And impressively, they read the same. The difference was a couple of tenths of stop, nothing more. So it means that the real base of this camera is 200 ISO, as is really 200 ISO. With most of the digital camera I had in my life, I always had to correct in some way the exposure meter in studio, because the declared ISO was not corresponding to the real ISO reading with the spot meter. With second camera, I had the ISO at 200 in the camera, base ISO at 200. Actually, measuring the flash and everything in studio was 100 ISO. So they usually trick the ISO to make you keep the highlights inside the histogram. In this case, the 200 ISO are real. So this is another thing that I appreciated about this camera. Especially in studio, I love to use the exposure meter. So to have a real ISO, it's absolutely, absolutely great. The construction of the camera is absolutely perfect. There are a lot of things that I love about Pentax. It's perfect for my fingers, for my hand. There are little details that I love, like the depth of field preview that is coaxial with an on-off switch. I love the user settings that we can put on the camera and so on. The menus, as I said, are very easy. By the way, it's beautiful, the fact that everything is in gray tonalities, including the menu. There's no color on the camera. This is a little detail that I really like and appreciate. But what really made me love this camera is the quality of the images. The quality of the images is something that I never seen before in a digital. I like to do black and white. Black and white is something that is my passion. You can check here my black and white tales if you want. And I really love to use black and white when I do photography. Converting from color, yeah, you can have great results. But with a monochrome sensor, it's much much better. By the way, if you want to check the file, because every time I talk about the digital camera, about the camera, and I show the results here on YouTube, or I show the results on my website with a compressed JPEG or something like that, I always think that's not a way to judge a camera. Compressing the image, doing a low resolution JPEG, or worst of all, YouTube that have the MP4 compression for the video, it really doesn't show all the details of the image. So if you want, there's a link down there in the description. You can go on my website. I write an article while I'm doing this video, so there you will find the original files, and you will find the raw files of some images, so you can download them, you can play with them, and you can see the real quality. But if you really want to see the quality coming out from a camera like this, get the file, elaborate in the proper way, so do the conversion from RAW to TIFF in the proper way, keeping the 16-bit, keeping all the color workflow correct, and print the images. In the prints you will really see the difference. This camera is a little gem. Pentax for me did absolutely a fantastic job. The quality of the files are impressive, the camera is absolutely fantastic. And by the way, the fact that this camera is a reflex SLR, so you can see the real sheen in the viewfinder, you don't see the interpretation made by the camera, is another essential thing. If you look at the JPEG that you get from this camera, they are good, but the quantity of information that you have in a RAW file is absolutely much more. The example that I used of the window in the church, if I look at the JPEG, it's just totally black. But I know, looking at the reality, that I can get the details from the RAW file. So it's essential to have a viewfinder that is an optical viewfinder and not an electronic viewfinder. So this is something that I really loved about this camera, is the reflex system. And by the way, to be an APS-C is absolutely a fantastic viewfinder. Something I also appreciated is kind of easy also to use manual lenses on this camera. It's easy because all the Pentax K lenses can be mounted, and it's easy for the focus. It's not the perfect focusing screen for a manual focusing, but it's still good enough to be able to focus properly without getting the focus wrong. This said, I simply love this camera. You've seen the results. You can go on my website and download some of the RAW files, and I really love this. If you like black and white, if you do black and white as something normal in your life, just get one of these cameras. It's absolutely a little jewel. It's absolutely something that will change your life. And by the way, to have a camera that you know that is black and white, you don't have the colors, will change your mindset, and you will be set to taking photographs in black and white and get much better results. So thank you for watching. There will be another video with about the use of filters with this camera, and then we will switch to other tools on other cameras. And yes, I will love to buy one of these. Before I say hello, again, if you want to support the channel, lasting photographs, photography depth manual, and inject fine art printing. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.